Before I start, make sure you have a nice clear video image. If it's kind of blurry or something, go to the bottom right hand corner of the video and choose the gear icon where it sets the settings, and choose quality and choose a higher number if you can. If you have a real hard time with playback, you might have to go a little bit lower, so there's a compromise. This is my second vintage journal. I got the cover at a thrift store for $1 and ripped all that out and put my own insides in, and covered the bottom with the first layer is sewing pattern tissue, and then above that are some book pages which you can't really see on the front. This doily is a hand-dyed doily piece, and up here this whole corner is another little delicate doily with a crepe silk bow. This is just one earring, which I thought kind of nicely set off. This actually has a little bit of purple in it here, but you can't really see it there, and this purple here, so it was a nice sort of evening up of the colors. This is some hand-dyed silk, which I kept it crinkly by using, I would have normally used starch, but I couldn't find it for anything, so I used hairspray. And then, of course, the main image with some stitching around. This part right here is printable from the internet, just like a handwriting printable. On the spine, I just have some neutral lace. I didn't want it to stand out too much. And I hand crocheted this flower, which, if you can see, it's a very lovely sheen to the yarn because it's silk yarn. So I like that effect. And that's a little doodad from the craft store. Another crocheted flower on top of a tiny rust-dyed doily. And there you can see the book page is a little bit better on the back of this. This is a bracelet, I do believe, the makings for one, and I just attached a hook so you can open it just easily that way. This book does contain a secret, so maybe you'll guess it by the time I'm finished. I will tell you at the last page of the book what the secret is. All right, I covered the first page with just some tissue paper, and the first page is a bag, a paper bag, so that's why there's an opening right here with lots of layers around it, and then the main image. And this is just a layered little flower with cheesecloth. This is fabric, a button, some fancy yarn. And on this side of the page is actually, I pasted another envelope style mini bag, so there's lots of pockets right here. Internet printable postcard with a very heavy lace. And this picture, it's an old-time mince pies ad, I guess, but I was really quite entertained by, this is where you find the mincemeat. And a brad is attached to, it's something for jewelry. I'm not sure if you'd call it a bead or what. It's just stamped with lines on the back. If you remember Ideals magazine back in the 70s, I don't think they're in business anymore. That's where this image came from. This was the background of that. It was like a woman's magazine for, I'm not sure, cooking or crafts. And she has just a little bit of lace in the corner on top of some scrap paper. This printable label, not even sure what it's for. I couldn't really read it. It was blurry. And just some stamping on the inside with just a few pieces of paper, which I collect my scraps and normally just sew them across the top and use it for content. And she's sewn onto some black tissue paper, which I rather liked, and just literally some scraps hanging around are added into the sewing part. This little lace sling, I have it looking so it looks like it's pinned, but actually it's glued right there because I don't think a pin would have held with the paper, and I added a few just dangles on the end of the pin. This little homemade envelope with some stamping has a picture of bunnies in a hot air balloon, and they're looking around. And this is a double-sided piece of scrapbooking paper with, of course, the the scissors that have a special edge for the trim. This rose-colored lace, and some really bright pink lace and some white lace. I got a ton of it at a yard sale for 75 cents. It was just amazing. This is one of those extra buttons envelopes you get with a new garment, and it's coffee dye, of course, with a stamp and some stuff hanging off the pin. But what I really like is this printable from the internet of the, well, it doesn't say it's the Titanic, but the White Star Line owned the Titanic, so, you know. Oh, it does say it's Titanic. Okay, my mistake. And it has their menu on it. And I don't know if this is real or fabricated, but I liked it, and I think I might use that again. There's certain ones where you say to yourself, oh, I'm definitely gonna use that one again. This little book has been around in my life for literally years, and it's gone through all these transformations, and it never seems to get thrown out. I used to keep needles in it. It used to be purple on the inside, so now it has some blank pages, and it's been transformed, and it has a little lace, and now it has its new permanent home. So he can stay in there. This lady with her big hat, she's glued down to the parchment paper, but then I also did some sewing, not all the way around, just in spots, and some triangular fashioned lace with a metal trim from my jewelry area. And that's just a book page with some sample handwriting on it. But she's covering this up. Bust cream or food. Not sure what it is, but thanks, Sears. I think I'll run down to Sears later today and see if I can pick some of that up. Just some various trims. This is definitely a big stack of stuff here. Paper, tulle, paper towel, rickrack, yarn, button. It's got everything. Now, the edge of this paper was driving me absolutely insane as I was working in this book because it was constantly wrinkled up and curling over, so I had tried putting clear gesso on it to try and stiffen it up and make it stay. I ironed it down, and it's just the OCD in me, I guess, because it, you know, it's fine. It looks vintage and crumpled up, but it was just driving me nuts. This tag up here is simply a rectangle that I used a circle punch to get that nice punch out, and I don't know if you can tell the black parts on it are just embossing powder. I don't think the shine is showing through, with some stamping on it. And then I did print out a bunch of these little sayings in this cool typewriter font and made that look sort of old-timey. Had a portrait with this sort of mustard-colored ribbon on. That was some sort of a misprint from something else I had done down there at the bottom, so it just looks kind of vintage. Stack of blank things, and the little doily tuck spots. Don't know if you can see the glitter spray I used on this page just to kind of go with the sort of the girly doll theme, but there is some glitter on there. More just pieces of blank or scrap paper, and it's a little rabbit, Peter Rabbit, I think. These ladies are on a book page, I believe. Yes, this was like a sewing book they had. And these tickets, this is actually a whole strip of tickets. And this is also an internet printable. Some background papers, various papers. This super soft tulle. I've had tulle a lot my whole life for various reasons, but I didn't realize that this super soft stuff was called English tulle. So if you're in search of that nice soft stuff that isn't scratchy, not that it matters in a book, but you know, maybe just for any reason in life, it's called English tulle. And stack of scraps, and there's another one of those printed phrases, and this time I put it on a little bit of muslin. This side pocket is folded over and sewn with some machine stitching from my sewing machine. These tickets didn't turn out great, so they're not removable. They're just there for filling space, I think, with a little chain onto a piece of jewelry, bead, or pendant, and the brad goes through this little side part. And there's a booklet in here, which I use the Japanese stab stitch or stab binding, not sure what you call it, with a little vellum half folder so I can put the paper in there. And this is blank. I don't mind using blank pages when it's something like going into something else, like all the little booklets and whatnot, because I just can't stand to see a blank page here when you look at the book, but if it's going to be inside something else, I don't mind that at all. Another internet printable, which I found quite cool. I like this little girl. She's busily sewing. Lots of layers here, and this piece of paper was from a magazine, and boy, is that stuff fragile. Fragile, fragile, fragile. A little trim there. Here's the other half of the paper bag from the very first page, and that's just a book page with some punches and some dance tickets, and this little tiny pocket here. It's supposed to look like a love letter, but it's just a stamp that has, I think it's writing in a different language or something. I guess I could have really written a little tiny love letter, but it's just for the illusion and just for something a little super tiny to fit in there. And the side pocket of the bag has another blank scrappy book with a cheesecloth bow. Stack scraps again with some lovely brown tulle. It's kind of a cross between tulle and lace because the rest of this sort of has a lot of this white printing on the top of it. There's a misprint. It got cut off, but I thought it looked okay in the book, so I just went with it. There's one half of this signature, and it's actually just cooking parchment and coffee dyed, of course. I was trying to fold it in all these special fancy ways, so I ended up with a lot of weird little angles and stuff. This has a printable of peppermints and a ticket. The front image here, I'll get that later, is a piece of cake, and then the second one on this side is cupcakes with the definition from the dictionary, and a little pin with some junk on the end. I really enjoy adding a little jump ring to those springs and adding a little this or that with the jewelry. I think it adds a lot to pins. The picture in here, she's got a little bit of black accent trim, and I didn't have black tulle, but I just laid down some white and inked it, and it did get on my hands a little bit, but then eventually after it dried it was fine. So if you want different colored tulle, just try inking it. I found that was quite nice. You can probably have any color you want that way. And this is a bookmark, a label from online that you can print. Some newsprint, what do you call? That's actually fabric. Stacks of scraps. Now this tuck spot, you could theoretically lose her if you put it in the wrong way, but if you're careful, it's fine just like that. Various trims in the back. A lovely lace stack right here. That's a lot. That's a big fat stack of lace right there. And internet printable. Every time I would see this as I was working in the book, I always thought, gosh, doesn't she look just like Jo from Facts of Life? If you're not old enough to remember that show, she was the tomboy one. And I always thought, God, that's so cool. And in here, she's an envelope. Just some stapled together whatnot. And I like her. There's a whole bunch of these printables on the line that's a little fortune teller. and just the little green that goes with her adds a nice bit of color to this page. The book is awfully brown, so it was a challenge to add color without making it look like it didn't belong. Here's another book that just gets slid into the belly band like so. And this pin I just put some seed beads on for accent. Stack of scrappies, scalloped scissors, and yeah, blank stuff inside with some old scrapbook paper that I didn't like. And so yeah, this just goes in here like this. Yep. And a little tiny bit of mint green from this scrapbooking paper. And I put the music down here, and I knew immediately that this piece of lace just randomly looked like a bass clef. I said, oh, I know exactly where that's going. That was pretty fortunate. Okay, so there's always the one page that you're not happy with. And this is it. And it's mostly because of this background here, which was a cocktail napkin. And I don't know, it just looks a little bit too masculine for me. But it is quote-unquote vintage, so there's always that one page. This is a quadruple layer sewing pattern tissue sewn together to make an envelope with button and trim on there. Another scrap stack, and this is another of my favorite things from this book. This guy, he's just, all right, let's go. This guy is just chugging along on his hot air balloon. I just love him. He's so cute. That's definitely another printable I will use again because I'm very fond of that guy. He's just like, yep, I'm on my way somewhere. I've got stuff to do, people to see. Everybody on my way. All right, this double pocket idea is quite a nice change if you're looking for something different to do than the usual just corner pocket. It has a couple of little cutouts here from the internet. Here's some more of my stiffened ribbon, and this is a tag with just a collage of scraps on it. This has just a little bow on the paper clip, which I sometimes put paint on the paper clips to make them look old and grungy. This is a prescription, shake the bottle, and some lipstick, an ad for lipstick, and an ad or a label for perfume, not sure. So this was an entire envelope here, and that was the center of the signature. So after I tied in the signature, then I glued the envelope together. And this top part is just a decoration for the flap. She's got her fancy hat on, and this is quite a large picture here put together, and then an old-timey scene. This background paper here is handmade paper, which I got at a yard sale again, and it doesn't look right in a lot of the places, but I thought it looked pretty good inside the envelope. And this is for, let's see, soap. Oh, vintage postal. This tiny little envelope, very easy to make, and just glued on there to hold one little tiny treasure. And that was a cutout from a book, and that's a scrapbook thing. Scrapbooking paper thing, is what I mean to say. Now, this pocket on the picture, I sewed this, but it's not sewn down to the paper. I sew things ahead of time and then glue them so that there's no stitches on this side of the paper when I'm doing it. So it looks like it's sewn on, but it's just attached right around the same area so that this is a round pocket instead of the usual square. And some decorative tags with, that's a cocktail napkin, a label, some doodads on the top. And that's the same cocktail napkin on this side, with a couple of more labels. And I thought, oh, is that going to be too matchy-matchy with the same cocktail napkin? But I rather like it, so I left it. Oh, also, this book page is in German, obviously, but I just really like the font because it's very curly and just very decorative, I think. So I will get a lot of use out of that German book. A tag stack. This is actually quite modern because I got it from some yarn I was gifted. So there's the yarn info here, but it had the right color, so I used it. And it's got a little bit of muslin through the holes, tied with a little tiny coordinating decorative yarn. And this lady has a little lace bow in the corner here, and that handwriting stamp. I rescued this bottom lace from some like wedding type lace. It was actually layered on some other stuff that looked really bridal, but I clipped it all out carefully, and I think that looks quite cool. It's very satiny, in case you can't see, it's shining. This piece of paper in the background was just a test piece from sewing, trying to figure out this stitch, so it was scrap. A stack of lace and whatnot, more of my yard sale lace. I love it. My last vintage journal had this on the cover, and I had to print 2 copies of the picture because I wasn't sure which one would be the right size, and so obviously this one was a little too small, went with a different one, and so, but I didn't want to throw it out because I just like how it's just a really pretty colors. It's called The Bridesmaid, and I just like that illustration a lot. A little more mint. This background green thing is a cocktail napkin with coordinating mint and brown button with a little foil wrapping paper under there. Another cooking parchment little booklet, and the surrounding the picture is paper towel that's got coffee in it, and then you just sort of accordion it up and glue it down with some weird trim. And this is actually just pre-done. These are like little pre-done sample tags, I guess you can get, but it's for writing in there. All right, the folder on this is a musical sheet, and it's quite fragile. You can see it ripped. I'm not sure if I'll tape that or what, but it seems like you look at it and it rips. I don't know if I'll use that again. Stack of blanks, a little cloth bow and a mini tag. These little doodads are in my lace box, and I've got a huge bunch of them from my yard sale again, and I'm not sure what they were originally, but they sure do come in handy. Here's another one of these. They come in a pad like this, but I do think it needs a little something extra. They don't stand alone very well, so just a little trim and a book page sewn on there. And here's a group portrait with a spot for writing on the back. And this little clamp is holding a little bitty book inside this envelope. And if you look at this envelope, it's easy to make these. If you look at the construction just by looking at this, you can whip a bunch of these out and they come in quite handy. And this is from some stationery. The box of stationery was the thank you notes, and so that's just the cardboard from that with some pages, which I tried doing gold foiling on the edge, and it turned out quite messy. So that's why it's inside something else. It's not really, you know, front page quality here. Now, this on the scrapbooking paper said, by the light of the moon, she gathered bachelor buttons. So I thought, those are probably mushrooms if you think about it, but I had to look it up because I was curious, and it's actually little bitty flowers. So, learn something new every day. She's on a pretty big piece of paper with some stitching around here. More of my hairspray stiffened ribbons of silk, and little doodads and whatnot. This little piece of muslin has a teensy weensy little bird stamp on it. He's one of my favorite stamps because he's just as big as just a tiny little thing. Here's finally the other half of the parchment paper that has all these funky folds and whatnot. This is an internet printable that says coilless pins, so I attached a coilless pin on there for fun. If you're not old enough to know that these are how you used to get a pack of needles in this little foldy thing, you can print this whole thing off and just cut it out, which I did, and just some little tag and little fake stamps. Yeah, I don't know if you still can get needles this way or if that's just a thing of the past, but I know you're enjoying watching me fumble around, so that's why I'm doing it. Okay. Here's a bookmark in here, and that's a printable piece of paper bag with stamping on and some more of my yard sale lace. And I like, here's just some cloth scraps on the top, and I like this idea of just doing some jump rings from jewelry on there. It's very simple, but I quite like it. And she is on some, that's tissue paper with some stamping on it, and a base of a thicker paper. Alright, so in this weirdly angled pocket, I have a little bitty thing, a little gypsy girl. Yeah, I was trying to fold all kinds of things, and I'm not sure what I was really doing, but that's how it ended up. And this little envelope has a fabric piece with a stamp on and some neutral buttons. And I believe this is, yeah, another just empty stack. And the last picture here, I really like the look on her face. She looks rather forlorn. If you haven't guessed it by now, I will tell you that all of the portraits of women in this book are actually prostitutes, either prostitutes or madams. So that is the secret behind this book. I really liked her look. There was quite a few from the book that I didn't use, but you know, going back, you can look in, now with that knowledge, you can sort of look at their faces and realize that was what their life was. So that's the secret of the book. I wonder how many of you guessed it. And actually this printable was a portrait of someone who was a prostitute also. So thank you for looking.